Let the show begin.
I'm not going to look at this, but I've got some thanks to make, so I wrote them down. Firstly, to the solar ceramics team. They were actually an epitome of what I really think marketing's about. In that they've got a mission. They're in the art. They're not a tile company. They work creative. They design. If you want to look at some stuff, and if you get a moment after the beer, do go down some of the stuff that you've got. So thank you very much to the service team. The other version, I'm going to do this. You can go to me, I forget. The other thing is David Keane. David Keane's my editor. David is, so there's a little contest, there's various authors in the room. David's on about 7 now. I'm on 1, so that makes me the same level as Emily Bronte. I mean, there's a debate of whether it's J.D. Salinger, but apparently wrote novellas when he was younger. David is like materially important. One, he sort of got me to do the book, but also, because you know how much I talk, most of you, David's ability to what he calls kill my darlings. And I've had a long process of killing my darlings and other bits and pieces which David's material for. David's also had another consultancy I work with David called Catalyst, which is a load of like other people who's got through, but we'll chat to it. And he's by far and away, if anyone knows him, advertising, the ultimate pitch and salesperson world. So book him now, since most of the other good salespeople have now retired. And then I've got Martin Loat OBE. Martin and I have known each other for ages. We went to university together, but we discovered it afterwards. At the time, my first bit of marketing probably, I did the Film Society, and I got pissed off at shit because I like films. And so I did my first bit of marketing, 2-for-1 offer, which was you could watch the Deer Hunter for free if you signed up to the Film Society. And then I discovered Martin later on was the head of events. Okay, so Martin, among things Martin's claim to fame, he booked U2 for a whole concert for 300 quid. He also is the campaigner for civil partnerships, which is our big twos, hence you don't have to be married. If anybody here from different relationships, that's you. And then he's a sort of an entrepreneur. He was a journalist, he built a PR company called Propeller Group, which he then sold. So he now has a bit of money, paddle boards too much, and is very kindly spend his spare time with me. That's it for me until I get interrogated. Oh, the other thing is, he's more than capable of holding me to account, which is the reason I've asked him to do this. So I'm going to shut up now for a bit.
That's my introduction, Mark. Yeah, we've known each other for 4 years we care to remember. But yeah, I'd like to force me to see if I can get Mark to say anything. But we'll try and sort of hold this for maybe about 20 minutes, but I know people love to chat and mingle at Insiders. And there's also a bit of football in the telly.
Yeah, there is. Which we can get on here apparently at 8 o'clock.
And I think one of the phrases I really love in your book, and congratulations on putting it off and writing it, is this phrase that marketing is about the audience catching more than the brand throwing. I quite like that, and you've got to catch your audience, not just be a brand. So we'll see what we can catch from our audience from what we throw tonight. So I suppose my first question is, have you told anyone about the book?
All of these people here just walked in off the street, including my family. There's a contest going on at home between my wife and my children as who can sell the most books, just to let you know. Siobhan's winning at the moment.
I don't think you should be able to have to your very good self. I will take a couple of questions from the floor if we get time, so start thinking about it. But seriously, with the book, how long did it take you to come up with the idea and why now? Because you've had a long, illustrious career, but what brings it to being this year?
I think the truth is I've got multiple books, but I never did them. So I had an excuse for not doing it. I was working, I found this is just a shit excuse. So that's why David's so important. Because it's sort of like, we're going to do this. My analogy would be like, have you ever run a marathon? Yeah. If you want to run a marathon, you do 2 things. You sign up for charity and you tell everybody you know. So if you want to write a book, it's exactly the same thing. Within that, in terms of what the book's in, it's actually, I think it's distillation. So it's not me having an idea. It's actually, I got pissed off, which we'll come on to later. And then I wanted to sort of fill the gap that there was an issue with. You know, that I thought there was problems and I wanted to sort it. LinkedIn in particular has really wound me up over the last 3 years. I love it and I hate it. But it's sort of, I think it's surfaced, you know, another one going, Jaguar. and let's have a row for no reason or something else in it. So that was like I think an epiphany in terms of doing it.
So is there a little bit of anger in here that you're trying to express?
There is an anger, there's a frustration. That sounds like being in a call centre. We know you're angry, we understand. There's a disappointment. I'll give you a couple of stats. So there's the Marketing Week did the survey that the majority of people who've got marketing in their title, the majority of them have never been trained in it. So just to put that in context, imagine you went over a bridge and had a sign on it that said, "There's a high probability this wasn't built by an engineer." You could probably not do it. And that sort of happened over time. And then there's separate things, isn't it? It doesn't mean that people aren't talented or good. They've also got very siloed, and there's a concept called Maslow's hammer where you answer everything to what you do. And I think collectively we've ended up, whereas my mind marketing is joined up, you understand all the things, that we've sort of ended up being very separate. So yeah, that's probably it. The final bit, there's a couple of people here, the biggest thing, there's a guy called Richard Feynman. And I've now been guest lecturing and doing various courses. David and I do the London Business School Launchpad program for startups. And one of the things that's really interesting is Richard Feynman's got a thing, if you want to really learn something, teach it. And I think that's materially been the biggest thing. Mark's here as well from the SCA, and Barry's from UCL. I think that whole thing, if you actually explain it to people, you work out to understand it. So I think that combination of those things is probably then go, and then David kicking the shit out of me, to be honest, and killing me down.
Do students know they're being taught by people that are relearning it again? Or do they?
Sorry?
Do the students know they're being taught by people who are only doing it so they can learn it?
I think the biggest worry is you worry how old you are. So I think it's very good if you can't do things like back in the day, and I think it's been very good to contemporise it. Mark got me to do presentations on the metaverse at one point, which was so I think that's good, and I think that's also, it stops you doing that shit where it goes, oh, when I did this, I did that. So you're trying to pull out what's the same thing that's still relevant, as opposed to what the trendy thing is. So for example, AI is a great example where on the one hand it's the answer, on the other hand there's issues, but there's conversation in the middle.
Yeah, I find myself saying when I was at university, I didn't use AI, which is true. On the structure of the book, you described it as a recipe book rather than a textbook. Explain that thinking there.
It's not a recipe book, it's more of a cookbook. So if I do it, the issue I think is you get a recipe book, someone tells you what to do, and here's your thing, you get yourself. A cookbook, it tells you how to cook. So someone will help you how to boil, how to do spaghetti bolognese, whatever else. So if you take the equivalent, not that I don't think anybody who's a major marketer will say this, but in simple terms, if you imagine you've got a major thing that businesses are worried about called value proposition, that I hear all the time, everyone talks about it, most people haven't got a clue what it is. So if I could give you the equivalent how to make spag bol, but spag bol is, look, here's how you can work and here's how as an exercise, so that's what I've tried to do. So every chapter has a mixture of what the issue is, explain it, how might you do it better, and then trying to give you a way to do it. So it's trying to, so if you want to, and that's the other thing that David did to me, he just said you can't write a book, you've got to write chapters, you've got to write points, you've got to do stuff. So it's tried to be self-contained. So that's what I've tried to do. And I've tried the other things, I've tried to pick out what I think are the major nuggets that people need to do. And most of my clients, some of them are here now, well, no, I tend to do it this way. So it's sort of what's in the book is also what my clients will see me do with them in the same way. So.
And there's so many tips in there, you know, I sort of took a lot from it going through it again the other day, but one I'd pick out is, obviously we all know about the 4 Ps,
okay,
which you revisit and you say that a lot of people, but you've invented a new P, it seems to me. Tell us about your
I haven't invented it, it just occurred to me that it cropped up. So, interesting thing, the way you write a book, you write drafts, you write various chapters, you send it back, and then David says to you, why have you put these chapters in that weren't before, and then we go back. And then one of the chapters that wasn't in was this thing called the 5th P. Okay? So everybody has heard the phrase through marketing, the 4 Ps, which are product, price, promotion, place. Just to let you know, most people, research will show this, are in the job of marketing, only do promotion. They don't do product, they don't do price, they don't do place. Now imagine you're Apple, and that's the way you were now. You wouldn't have a shop, you wouldn't have thought about your iPhone, you wouldn't have done any stuff, and that's what's happened, it's got through. Then when I worked it through, I then sort of, and this is a lot of this comes from startup stuff, a lot of startups spend all their time raising money as opposed to building their business. And then when they get that money, they spend it on marketing or product. Whereas actually, if they have a conversation with someone who's a big corporation, they could get distribution, they could get people to do it. And then you spin that round. If you're a big, dull, sorry, I don't mean to say dull for any big corporation. If you're a more set in your ways corporation, it's like fun things to do with people that you can then work on. yeah, if you know, just there's loads of examples, but Ryan Reynolds and Wrexham is a really interesting one. I interviewed a guy called Peter Epson, I used to work with at Lego, and Peter is the guy who did Lego Create. So that's the idea that you give the audience the chance to create the product. And Peter told me, it sounds great, but Peter told me he was brought in with the chief exec at the time and said that Lego was failing, and the issue was Lego had become exploiters, not explorers. So Peter was the person who had to make this happen, but then his real world conversation, he was going into the people who designed all the Lego stuff, and they were going, can I swear? They were going, fuck off, that you're going to let consumers design my products. So he had to work that through. So it's really, and I think that's a really interesting thing you're seeing more and more. The other one that's in the chat is I don't know if you know NASA. So NASA got to the moon because of partnerships. So the dust buster come up with Black & Decker, and I love this idea because it's cordless, that if they hadn't done it as they shut the door, Neil Armstrong's going, you put a cable in, put the plug on.
Good anecdote. Well, just come away from the book. Let's go back a bit. What got you started in this business? Because you've had a long journey with agencies and your own consultancy, Maverick Planet. How did you get into it? Tell us a bit more about that journey.
I think it also goes back, you don't just end up, so go back to my mum being a cat for ABC. You see a lot of films, you see a lot of ads. We've got the chief exec of Pearl and Dean here, so I've got ta-da, 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 ta-da. So I saw a lot of stuff, so I was very immersed in advertising.
Going to the cinema with you.
Yeah, and therefore I think I just liked ads and stuff like that, and then I, believe it or not, did a postgraduate in marketing, so I'm professionally qualified. So someone told me that would be an interesting thing to do, so I spent a whole year in Newcastle, so I became a qualified market researcher and marketer. And then I went to advertising, it was more fun. And then after that, I've sort of gone back to doing my knitting, I would say. So I just think it's time to, so yes, lots of my friends here, like Graham, who's a great researcher, we have conversations about AI with research, for example, going, no, please don't do it. I can't say synthetic, it's bollocks, you know, but it's going back to the knitting. So there's a bit of me that's the case. I'm not that close to the agency world anymore, but I was very fortunate to work with some very good agencies. So WS, which Stephen was the chief exec, was where we had the famous brand BMW. And BMW was great advertising, you know, the ultimate driving machine. Please don't look at the ads now. But we would go to Munich and meet the engineers and talk about products, and that's sort of gone. So it's going back to, you know, interview people. I just feel there's a lot of people who are actually very, very talented who want help, and I think that we're not really helping them to learn and get better, if I'm honest.
You need professionals in the industry or students?
I think there's three sets. There's the people who start and do this because you're in a spreadsheet, you're in Excel, before you know you're in digital marketing and no one ever tells you what else it is. So that's really, you're already siloed at a very early day. And that's, you know, influence is very, very interesting, but also it's very siloed quite quickly. Then there is people in businesses who literally want to do marketing, but they might be on the board or something else in it, and it's always been explained to them as a jargon thing they don't do. And then when you start to talk to them, Mom's here from Canopius, we had a meeting with the board, with Neil, who's the chief exec, and he asked me a question which is, right, I'm going to do this stuff with you. And he went, why are we paying you? And I said, well, nobody knows what the name Canopius means. No one can explain what the values is. And then what you really want to do is get lots of people to join you and stay with you. And I went, good luck with that one. And Neil, bless him, went, fair enough. And off we went. And if you look up the Canopius brand, nothing to do with me at the end, it's fantastic now. Tastes new, wonderful, brilliant insurance brand.
I'm going to make another call for any audience questions in a minute, so you should be storing a few up, and I might come to you if necessary. Just one more from me before we get into that. Talk a little bit about the actual writing of the book. You know, how did you fit it in? Did it take lots of time? Were you distracted? You just knuckle down, go to your shed and do it? How did you?
We would have, Siobhan said this, you wouldn't want to go to our shed. No, you wouldn't, would you? No. The truth is, I'm a curious person, so I tend to, the worst case scenario I call it procrastination, but I'm interested in things, I look at things, I do things, stuff that crops up. The downside of that, I therefore, to get on and do things, is I do it late. So David was materially important, but then when it happened, I think there's a period of about a year where we got the draft agreed, and then Tom was a great publisher which we started with, then worked it through. David was very good for me, and then I think at the start of this year we sort of got a draft up and redid it. But literally I locked myself away for about a month.
And you're running the Maverick Planet consultancy at this time, the phone's ringing, big clients.
Yeah, all the time. I'm turning them down.
Turning them down for the book.
Jeff Bezos is on the phone saying we should rebrand the rockets. Elon Musk says, do you think I'm a bit of a tosser? How does that affect my brand? Yeah, all that stuff is going on. Trump, whatever Make America Great Again means, want me to write that article? I can do that one.
So you found some time, is what you're saying?
No, I didn't. I just had to prioritise time. So yeah, if anybody, there's a number of people who are consultants. It's different from working at consultants eat what they kill. And therefore that means finding a client, doing the work, chasing the bill. They say that can you do it on Thursday, and then they forget, and it goes on. So I literally turned off what I was doing in order to do this, and particularly with David's help, it was very good. But that's how I had to do it. But I was working like 4 in the morning, stuff like that.
Would you recommend writing a business book? I know 1 or 2 people in the audience, like Bruce stated here, have written a business book. Would you recommend
He's written
it?
2, isn't he?
Oh, right.
Bruce, by the way, I'm slightly behind Bruce because Bruce is the Financial Times Business Book of the Year, and he's got a podcast and everything else in it. And his job now. I looked up his job this morning. His job is keynote speaker. That's what we all dream of. These days you can self-publish, so there's nothing to stop you making your own book up, and you can get 3 won't. But I think if you have to have some sort of idea and concept, there's got to be a reason for it. And it's not. I don't think it's a problem doing it, because actually it's quite a good thing to do. If you put down your thoughts and no one buys it and everything else, that's not a problem. The different bit is, in particular, I've got a marketing book. You sort of have to market it, and it's like, and I'm sort of going, shit. I can't just go. I've got to do things and get people to buy copies. That's why you've got a little card on it. You turn it over. You can scan. That'll be 100 copies sold this evening. All put your reviews in, and I might charge a bit higher. And if you're really nice to me and give me your value proposition, I'll give you a book.
You're certainly living the peeling promotion.
I've always been like that.
Any questions? If you've got a question for Mark, show your hand up and I'll come to you.